Everyone, I'm Richard, this is Grey Wizard Gaming, and today we are talking about what are the Ancients and how do they play. So the Ancients were a Kickstarter OS3 release, and they play a little bit different than the other factions. Of course, every faction plays differently because it's an asymmetric strategy game, but this faction is maybe a little bit more different. They, like, for example, they do not have a Great Old One. So these are humans who have built this like strange, weird Frankenstein science under the ground, and they've come up to the surface to, I guess, hopefully steal away the Earth from the other factions, basically during the end of the world. So instead of Great Old Ones, they build these cathedrals. And the way they build the cathedrals is the same as building a gate. You just take a cultist, you pay 3 power somewhere that doesn't already have a gate, and you build a gate. Well, same way, as long as it doesn't already have a cathedral, you build a cathedral. But a little bit more limited. Also, you can only have one cathedral per set of symbols. And when I say symbols, I mean like the yellow sign spellbooks, the V, the Ouroboros, the gnashing teeth, or the no symbol. So there's 4 such areas on the map, and you can only build one cathedral per those different areas. Now, for setup, you choose where you start based off of a couple limitations. One, you can't set up until after everyone except Cho-Cho, Windwalker, and Opener. So core factions plus sleeper, then you, and then finally the last 3 factions set up their game. So you can choose anywhere on the map to start that does not already have a symbol or another faction. So you can basically set up North Pacific, you can set up Indian Ocean, you can set up, well, on this map, that's like it. But if you play on a larger map with more players, you're going to have more spaces that you can choose to start in. But anywhere that doesn't have a built-in symbol, you can choose to start. You can choose to start like Australia or South America. Any of the areas that have one of your symbols that you need, the yellow sign spellbook symbols, you can start there if you want. I think most people tend to start in North Atlantic, but again, you should look at the other players and what factions other people are playing and then choose accordingly. Now, your unique ability is called Dematerialization. It's a Doom phase ability, and it allows you to relocate any or all of your own units from any one area to a single other area anywhere on the map. So there is no limitation on that, really. I mean, that's it. Just has to be your units. They all have to be in the same spot, and then boom, now they're somewhere else. You're really going to want to try to leverage that ability. It's super powerful, and it's super interesting and unique. And the fact that it happens in the Doom phase means that you basically do it before anybody goes that turn. So that's super cool. Now, you have no Great Old One, so how do you kind of compete? Well, let's talk about how you unlock the spellbooks, because they're related to cathedrals primarily. You, just like the yellow sign, you build a cathedral in an area marked with the Ouroboros symbol. So you build the cathedral there, again, it'd have to have a cultist, and boom. You also have to build one, that gives you a spellbook. You build one, the gnashing teeth, that gives you a spellbook. You build one that doesn't have anything, that gives you a spellbook, so on. Each time you build one of these other cathedrals, it's going to give you a spellbook. And once you have all 4, you have something kind of special. It may not count, depends on whether you play with independent Great Old Ones or not. But if you do have independent Great Old Ones, having 4 cathedrals out qualifies the condition to be able to awaken an independent Great Old One. So normally you need to have your own Great Old One first. In this case, you just need the cathedrals out in order to qualify to awaken an independent Great Old One. Otherwise, they do nothing on their own except give you spellbooks. There's 3 spellbooks related to the cathedrals. One, and this should be your probably second spellbook, is called Worship Services. And you gain 1 power for each cathedral that shares an area with an enemy gate. Those enemies each gain 1 power. So 2 things there. That means you want your cathedrals where the other players are. And number 2, you want to have this power go to not the winner, right? Not the leader. So whoever the leader is, you want to do some social engineering and convince other people that they want your cathedral in their space. And if they, let you do that, then you'll get a power, they'll get a power. And both of you will be more powerful and more able to compete with the leader. The other 2 spell books are, there's no particular order that you should get these spell books. One is called Consecration. When you perform a ritual of annihilation, gain 1 elder sign if at least 1 cathedral is in play. If all 4 cathedrals are in play, gain 2 elder signs instead. So obviously you need to be doing rituals of annihilation. And if you are doing rituals of annihilation early in the game, then you're going to want this Consecration spellbook early. If you're going to be doing it later in the game, then you can wait and you don't need to get it right away and instead get one of the other spellbooks. The Unholy Ground is the 3rd spellbook, and this is a post-battle effect, meaning you have to have a unit in the battle to do this. If there is a cathedral in the battle area, you may choose to remove a cathedral from anywhere. If you do, an enemy Great Old One in the battle must be eliminated by its owner. So, important note, this is not a pain. This is not a kill. Okay? You have to have a unit there, but if you have a unit there, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, Dire Cthulhu, but I'm going to give up Australia, and you have to eliminate your Great Old One. So that's how that works. You don't get to choose which one, but most people only attack with 1 Great Old One at a time. Nobody's power, like Run Tegoth, doesn't protect from it. It is very powerful, and that is your primary way of not killing Great Old Ones, but rather, kind of taunting them and saying, like, hey, attack me if you want, but if you do, there's going to be consequences. So ancients are all about diplomacy and social engineering. You really want to constantly be pushing these buttons on the other players to keep them from doing what you don't want them to do and try to encourage them to do what you want them to do. All right. Now, being able to kill their Great Old Ones, that's great, but it's only if they attack where a cathedral is. So what else do you have? Okay, you have 3 great units, and those units each have their own spellbook. Now, you generally want to not summon these monsters until you have their spellbook, okay? And the reason being is that each of the spellbooks makes the creatures much, much cheaper, and the game is balanced assuming that you will not summon these expensive monsters until you have the spellbooks that make them cheap. However, obviously you got to read the table and you have to do what you need to do. All right, the first unit is called the Unmeant. You have 3 of these. They cost 3 by default, but if you have their spellbook, they cost 0. They have 0 combat dice, but what their spellbook does is their spellbook makes them now cost 0, and when you summon an Unmeant, also select an enemy to gain 1 power. This does not have to be a bad thing. Giving your enemy's enemy 1 power is a great bargaining thing, especially if you're playing with a lot of players saying, hey, if you protect me, I will give you all the power. I'm going to summon 3 Unmen for free this turn. That's 3 power. That is a real big nicety. And the thing is, you give them 1 power, comes back around, you give them 2 power. If they messed with you, you don't give them the 3rd. If they break their word, you don't give them the 3rd. And at that point, you've now, not wasted, but you've delayed taking your real actions until everybody else is kind of done taking their actions, because you had 3. Just like Black Goat with their ghouls that are free, you have these Unmen. Take advantage of it. Delaying is a hugely powerful tactic in this game. You always want to do your most powerful things in the end, usually. Okay, the next spellbook, or the next creature, are the Reanimated. These are super cool steampunk zombie Frankenstein things, and they have a spellbook. Now these guys, they cost 4 by default, and they have 2 combat dice. That's a bad ratio. You don't want to pay that for. But you get them down to 1, and now they're a cost 1 with 2 combat dice. That's crazy. But like everything with the Ancients, there is some downside. Their spellbook is called Brainless, which makes them cost 1. But also, they may only move, capture, or declare battle if they share an area with 1 or more of your non-reanimated units. So you have to start your action with somebody else. You can move them by themselves somewhere else, that's fine, as long as you started with some other unit. So Brainless, pretty cool. You have 3 of them, and they're cool. All right, now the Yog-frens. Yog-frens, all right, guys. These guys have 7 combat dice each, and you have 3 of them. They are pretty decently sized. They are deadly. These guys are going to be shredding through Great Old Ones. The downside is they cost 6. You do not want to pay 6. So you get their spellbook. Their spellbook is called Extinction. They now cost 3 power to summon, but when they're killed or eliminated, remove it permanently from the game. So the big thing here is that these spellbooks are made to be used. And while there is no upside to the Yog-frens being permanently removed from the game, unlike the Unmen do have an upside because you're empowering other enemies of the leader. So, try to look at the upside of the downsides, but don't be afraid of the downsides either, as far as like the Yog-frens. The Yog-frens, take them into combat, bring Unmen. Just like anything, try to sacrifice the cheap things so you can keep your powerful things. If you lose a Yog-fren, it's not the end of the game. And ideally, you would lose your last Yog-fren towards the end of the game, right? You're going to want to try to keep your 4 cathedrals out and try to do as many rituals as possible so that you can get those 2 elder signs each, right? The yellow sign also get 2 elder signs when they do rituals of annihilation if they have 2 great old ones. So a lot of factions don't have 2 great old ones, so they only get 1 elder sign. You have the ability to get 2. Of course, you want to threaten people with unholy ground, but if you can have the 2, that's great. The other thing is you really are going to have to leverage your social engineering. You have to manipulate the other people. And my key in social engineering during a board game is to be as honest as I can. I try to have a reputation as someone who will keep my word because I want to make deals. And I want the people that are losing to think that if I empower them, they might be able to win. And they might. Obviously, you're not going to be able to make deals with the winner, the leader. The leader is, on his own. But you have a lot of combat dice in this faction. You have a lot of mobility, being able to move these units. If you have the most power in a turn, use that ability, Dematerialization, so that in the Doom phase, you move your army over, and then you have the first action, and you choose the direction of play, so you wipe them out. And hopefully, you move the direction of play towards somebody else who's also going to, in theory, wipe them out too. So you can very quickly engineer a coup to take somebody down if you're able to just get that boost in power. And the fact that your cathedrals can give you up to 4 extra power, it can be a big deal. So with that, I think that's where I'm going to end it. I will have another video talking about interactions between different units and factions and rules and things like that. But this is who the Ancients are, and this is kind of some tidbits on how to play them well. Super cool faction. I really want to hear in your comments, like whether you like them, whether you've enjoyed playing them, and what is their position in your group? Are they winning a lot? Are they never winning? How balanced do you think these guys are compared to other factions? And with that, bye everyone.